What's up, everybody? Brandon Lindsay here with the Rehabers Playbook, and it is that time of year where we get to go into our budget templates within Rehab Valuator and we get to update our costs. Because what we always try to do with these templates is make sure you're using up-to-date information and you're not using costs from the past. Because as you know, for the past 3 or 4 years, costs can vary quite a bit. They can constantly change, and if you're using costs from a couple years ago, you're going to be using bad information when you're making budgets. So again, today we get to go in, we get to look at these costs, and I'm going to talk about how costs are changing within each item. We're going to talk about costs that are increasing, some costs that may be decreasing, and how that's going to affect your budget. Before we do that, let me say a quick word about Rehab Valuator. It is our preferred software for project management. It's definitely what we recommend other rehabbers and builders use for their project management responsibilities. And it is not something that we own, it is not something that we manage, but it is a perfect pairing between what we teach in the Rehabers Playbook and what Rehab Valuator has to provide for you. So if you want more information, we will include a link below. If you want to use a link that allows you to use the software for 14 days for just $1, we'll also include that link below. And we have plenty of other training videos and videos on this YouTube channel that show you the functionality and the value that Rehab Valuator provides for all rehabbers and builders. So we highly recommend you check it out. And that's where we keep all these templates. You're going to see today we're going to go through a new construction template, but we also have budget templates and scope of work and schedule templates for full gut renovations, for cosmetic renovations, for additions, etc. So again, this is the best software that you can use as a rehabber and a builder, and we're going to be looking at this template today within the software. Also, another word before we get started about our information and how we track this data. We have a huge spreadsheet of thousands of costs, of thousands of materials that we track on a very consistent basis. We track it at least quarterly. We're constantly updating it, and it allows us to provide you insights into how costs are changing and what it means for your business. So if you're wondering how we know this information, how we know what prices are changing and in which direction, it's simply because we're nerds and we track this information like crazy. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump over. I'm going to be looking up into my left because that's where I'm going to be seeing the split screen here. So don't mind me, but we're going to go through this template and I'm going to talk about which prices are changing and what you should be expecting. Okay, and we're only going to go through this template for new construction because new construction is really going to encompass all the different expenses and costs that you will experience as a rehabber or as a builder. Because as you know, with new construction, you're building from the ground up. So there's really no items that you're not using in a new construction project. You're going from footing, foundation, framing, flooring, drywall, paint, electrical, all of it, right? So that's why we're focusing just on this template. But all of our other templates are updated with the same costs that are associated with those types of projects, right? So let's start with our soft costs here. The good news with soft costs is that prices are not changing here at all, right? It's really just professional services between architects, engineers, and surveyors. And all of this is really just labor-based, which means their inflation, their price increases happened over the past 2 to 3 years as inflation and cost of living has increased. So right now, as the economy has stabilized, the labor costs in these professional services have not changed that much. So that's good news. That's a good start. And let's move on to our hard costs. So our hard costs start here with footing, foundation, framing. And to start with footing and foundation, these are also two costs that are not changing very much. The material involved in these items are not increasing or decreasing to an incredible amount. So for the most part, these are very stable prices as well. So again, off to a good start. Nothing's really changing. And now we're going to move into framing. In framing, historically, and when I say historically, I mean over the past 2 to 3 years, everybody knows that lumber increased tremendously over the past 2 to 3 years, and we were waiting to see it come down. Now, our insights of tracking construction costs throughout this year has shown us that in the middle of this year, we saw a lot of construction costs are actually softening. They're actually decreasing a little bit, or at least they were. Unfortunately, the bad news I have for you is that they're starting to increase again. We're seeing more framing items increase in price than decrease in price, right? So in the middle of this year, framing costs and framing lumber looked like it was actually trending down. And now it looks like it's trending back up, okay? And that's actually a theme that you're going to see with a lot of construction items that require wood. So when we get to cabinets, vanities, doors, you're going to see a very similar trend. There was a softening period, and now it's actually increasing again. The good news, if there is good news, is that it's not increasing to the extent that you've seen over the past 2-3 years. It's just kind of going up a little bit, right? So you will see framing material costs go up a little bit as compared to the middle of this year and even as compared to the beginning of this year, but not much. Like I said, it came down at some point, so really at the end of the day, we might be somewhat even with where we started at the beginning of the year. Now, as we move down, windows is an area where I can give you some good news. With windows, these prices are actually coming down, and these are wood-based items for the most part, right? So as we saw framing material increase, we saw the window prices increase with it, but we're not seeing the same relationship right now. Like I said, framing material is increasing, but window material is decreasing. And a lot of this depends on what windows you're using. For example, wood windows actually decreased significantly recently, while black vinyl windows are increasing. When it comes to white vinyl, double hung, single hung, the most standard types of windows, those are actually decreasing. So that's the good news I have for you, because most people use white vinyl, either double hung or single hung windows, whether that's new construction or replacement, and those prices are actually coming down. So that's really good news, because we all know windows are a fairly expensive item on a construction project. Moving down the list, we have exterior doors. Exterior doors follows the same trend as framing material. During the middle of the year, the prices came down. Right now, they're coming back up. Okay, so do with that what you will. Hopefully that trend stops, it just flattens out. I have a feeling that's kind of the trend of what's going on, as it went down for a little bit, now it's coming back up, and it's just gonna kind of stabilize. But again, it's following the same trend as framing material. Roofing material and labor is fairly consistent. Across the board, labor throughout this template you're going to see, and throughout our updates you're going to see, is fairly consistent. We're just focused on the material. And if you allow me to step back for a second, a good overarching picture for me to paint for you guys when it comes to these construction costs is that labor is going to be the item that varies amongst markets. When it comes to material, you'd be surprised, it actually does not vary too much amongst markets. So our building material here in Richmond is very similar, if not the same, as markets even like Los Angeles and New York, right? New York might be a little different, a little bit more expensive, but through our research, it actually surprised me that material prices are fairly similar, again, if not the same, across all American markets. It's really the labor that changes significantly amongst different cities and counties. Okay, so again, that's just a big picture thought and concept for you guys to teach you guys and to share with you guys. Again, I was surprised, but that's the case. That's what our data shows us. All right, but back to roofing. Labor is going to stay the same. And material, some items are going down, some items are going up. So we're going to just call that a net zero change, and we'll just call that a consistent number right there. So roofing is very consistent. Plumbing labor, plumbing material, when it comes to rough and material, those are all fairly the same, right? There might be some increases, very slight increases in the rough and material, but for the most part, it's nominal, nothing to worry about, and we're just going to keep that number the same. What we did notice is that bathtubs are increasing in price, which was interesting to us, but they are increasing a little bit. So we adjusted the numbers a little bit to reflect that. So bathtubs did increase a little bit. As we go down HVAC, electrical, we're going to call both of these a net zero also. We're seeing no real change here, nothing to write home about, nothing that we need to change our templates over. So HVAC, electrical, between the labor and the rough and material is fairly consistent. Okay, some things are going down, some things are going up. We're calling it net zero. All right, let's move down here. Now we have siding. Now siding's an interesting one because I think the prices here are changing mainly because of supply and demand. So hardy siding, especially through the inflationary period that we had a couple years ago, got very expensive, almost too expensive. And what happened is manufacturers actually went out and started manufacturing more siding items that kind of reflect hardy. And what did that do to the price of hardy? It forced it down because the demand was going down as well. So the price for hardy actually decreased somewhat significantly, which is good news because we all like hardy siding. It was just very expensive. And even we as builders started making changes and using alternative products to kind of match hardy, but not spend as much. And we were saving tens of thousands of dollars just by not using hardy and using different products. So again, I think manufacturers got smart, started creating different material that we could use that wasn't quite as expensive as hardy siding, and it allowed all the prices to come down a little bit. Vinyl siding is not changing much. Remember, in this template, we give you options to use either hardy or vinyl. So we have both of those costs listed here. And again, vinyl siding, labor, material is not changing much. If anything, I've noticed some cheaper vinyl siding, but I don't want to include that. I don't want to decrease that price because I know other vinyl products have increased, and this is all based on your supplier, who you use and what product you use, right? So vinyl siding, we're going to call that a scratch. No changes there. Next, insulation. Look, insulation is one of those items that is, for the past 5 years, 6 years, just consistently increasing, and it's still that way. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's my contractors, but I'm seeing other contractors do it. I'm seeing other builders notice it. But insulation is just always increasing slightly over time. It's like every bid I get is a little bit more. So there is some anecdotal evidence that I'm weighing into that. But like I said, insulation is slightly increasing. And at this rate, I'm just going to always expect it to slightly increase year over year. Drywall, the same. No real changes here. Material, labor, pretty consistent. Nothing that I want to change this template over. Paint, the same way. Okay, drywall paint, let's just call those scratch and keep moving on. Now, tile. Tile is an item that is, when it comes to tile material, slightly, very slightly increasing. Every item has increased a little bit. And the only items that are decreasing are items that are either going out of stock or nobody wants them anymore. So I don't even consider that data to be using for this, right? For the most part, everything's increasing, but it's very small. It's very small, and I did not even change the template over this because it's so small. So it's a trend to keep an eye on, but for the most part, it's just a small increase you're seeing with tile material. Hardwood, same way. Okay, and hardwood, you might even have a little bit of downward action there with the prices. Hardwood material is coming down a little bit with some items, going up with other items. So whether this is related to framing material and wood material overall, or whether this is being pressured by all the other flooring products that are coming out every single month, whatever it is, these prices are seeing both a downward movement and an upward movement. So we're going to call this a scratch as well. Moving through, I'm just going to brush over items that aren't changing. Shower doors, we saw that change quite a bit over inflation. No changes right now. Interior doors, this is following the same trend as framing. So it went down middle of the year, coming back up right now. So another trend to keep an eye on. Interior door material is going up currently, but went down earlier in the year. So we're kind of where we started in January. So not too much change. We're reflecting it in this template, something to keep an eye on. And even the door levers and door knobs are not seeing too much change, but if anything, they're going up. Okay. Interior trim, same as all the other wood. Okay. I don't have to go into too much more detail, but trim is very similar. Okay. Trim went down in the middle of the year, going back up a little bit. Special trim is obviously going to reflect what we just talked about with interior trim, and so are interior railings if they're wood railings. Okay, but there's no real changes to either the interior or exterior railings. For the most part, these are not moving at all. They're pretty consistent where they are. Nothing that we have to worry about. Now, when we get to cabinets and vanities, these are pretty interesting. Cabinets are coming down, and they went down in the middle of the year with the framing, with the trim, with the interior doors, and they haven't come back up for the most part. They're still down there, and if anything, we're seeing them move down more than up. So it's nice to know that cabinet materials throughout this entire year have just decreased in price. And look, it's a very rare thing for us to report and for us to see as rehabbers and builders any price decrease over that length of time. So that's really good news, and that allows us to do kitchens for a lot cheaper and maybe spend a little bit extra to give our clients, our buyers, and our tenants a nice kitchen. Vanities. This is what's interesting because typically cabinets and vanities are moving in the same direction, but vanities are following the trend of framing, interior doors, and all that other wood material that we've been referencing. It went down in the middle of the year and is coming back up now. And even there are a handful of items that are significantly increasing in price. So you have to be careful. I was really, really excited to report in the middle of the year that vanity prices were decreasing across the board. Now they're increasing across the board. And like I said, some items are increasing by hundreds of dollars. So keep an eye on this. This is something that I'm hoping stops where it is, and maybe we can even see some downward action in the future. Countertops are not changing. If anything, you've seen these prices stay consistent for a pretty long time, even through inflation, and actually sometimes have gone down in price. I think countertops are the story of just constantly manufacturers and builders reinventing the wheel. So you have prefab countertops now. People are moving away from quartz into other things. People are doing a bunch of different types of countertops and installing a bunch of different types of countertops. So maybe that doesn't allow for countertops to increase in price consistently because builders are moving on to the next product so frequently. So, of course, we all like quartz, and quartz has been a trend for a little bit of time now, but manufacturers came out with prefab quartz and then a bunch of different types of quartz. And now people are kind of moving back to some nice granite, right? So that's keeping the suppliers on their toes and making sure that they don't consistently increase their price or increase at all. Now, when we go down to plumbing fixtures and electrical fixtures, this is kind of follows that same trend. It's not a wood material, of course, but it is an item that went down in the middle of the year And now you're seeing some of the items come back up. Now, I would not say that the prices are increasing back just like we talked about with vanities or we talked about with framing material, but you're seeing some items go up and some items come down, right? So that's kind of where we are right now. We had a big or like a noticeable decrease in the middle of the year, and now some of the items are increasing back to where they started. Okay, so that trend is for plumbing fixtures and electrical fixtures. And a lot of what determines these prices in this industry are the suppliers. Amazon put great downward pressure on big box suppliers, other big suppliers, to make sure that these items weren't so expensive. Especially through inflation, they got very expensive. But Amazon, as they've come out with more products, cheaper products, and they ship them straight to you very easily, it makes Lowe's and Home Depot decrease their price more. So that's the overall the overall factors that are affecting plumbing fixtures and electrical fixtures. Really comes down to the suppliers. But again, the overall trend is they went down in the middle of the year, and now some items are going up and some items are still low or coming down. Okay. Appliances are fragmented. Refrigerators look like they're going up, all of them, some of them significantly so. But all of the other appliances like ranges, dishwashers, microwaves, all the other appliances are not changing. They're almost exactly the same. So there's no changes there. The only change you'll see in appliances are refrigerators. Like I said, they're increasing, but again, not too much. So we've changed the price in these templates a little bit to reflect that. But besides refrigerators, there's no other changes that are needed here. Bath hardware, mirrors, we can call this a scratch. No real changes here. Obviously, the labor is not really necessary for us to worry about, and the mirrors are staying pretty consistent. So we can brush right through that item. And exterior hardware is the same as bath hardware, so we'll brush through that item as well. And to be honest with you, as we get to the end of this template, everything else is very consistent. Poured walks and drives, very consistent. Fencing, patios, gutters, landscaping, very consistent. The only thing I would say is that fencing material, it kind of follows that trend we've been talking about throughout this whole training or this whole video. So sorry if I'm boring you with it, but it went down at a certain point and now it's coming back up. I don't know the factors that are leading to that entire trend. I'm not too sure. There's a lot of factors even right now today as I sit in front of you that could be affecting this. We have the port strike that just happened today that they've been planning for months. So have they been reacting to that early? I don't know. It looks like a lot of suppliers were reacting to that early, even outside of the construction industry. So that could be part of it. That could be part of this trend back upward, right? But again, fencing material kind of went down a little bit. Now you're seeing it creep back up. And again, everything else is pretty similar. Patios, hardscapes, gutters, landscaping. Those are all items that are not changing in this template, haven't changed much throughout the year. Items that you don't have to worry about too much when it comes to keeping up with these costs. Okay, so that's everything with this template. This template is now available and ready for you within Rehab Valuator. Again, if you don't have the software, I highly recommend that you try that 14-day trial. Take a look at these templates, and we're giving you a full roadmap to all these types of projects, whether it's new construction, full gut renovation, additions, cosmetic renovations. All those templates are available here in Rehab Valuator, just like the one you see here for new construction. So, and not only are we giving you a budget, obviously in the middle you see the scope of work, and we even give you schedules with this too. So that's why I say it's a full roadmap for you. So just a little plug for my friends over there at Rehab Valuator. We love the software, and we highly recommend that you give it a look and give it a shot. Trust me, once you get into it, you're never going to be able to rehab and build without it. So that's everything I have for you today. This is really overall just a way to express what costs are changing throughout this year, what our data is showing us, and how we could potentially provide you with insights that help you make better decisions and build better houses. And of course, the main purpose of this was to show you that all of our templates in Rehab Valuator are updated and ready for you to use. So you're not going to be using old numbers. You're going to be using completely up-to-date numbers. So if you have any questions about this, about the software, about our data, please reach out. We'd be happy to help, happy to answer questions, and we will see you on the next cost update.